All right then, Danny. So, can you tell us first of all what Working Class Heroes is?
So, Working Class Heroes is an event taking place at BFI South Bank on Saturday, the 14th of April, and it's designed to celebrate working class screen talent, past, present, and future. Throughout April, we're running a season of Woodfall Films. Woodfall Films was the studio, essentially, the London studio, responsible for the kitchen sink dramas of the 60s, Saturday night and Sunday morning, all the way through to Kes, at the end of the 60s. And they spawned the working class hero, the idea of, this working class movie star. And so we want to bring that up to the present day. And what we're going to do is, in the middle of that Woodfall season, that Woodfall moment, we're going to take a day in April and we're going to celebrate contemporary talent. We're going to join things up. We're also going to bring a whole load of working class actors and filmmakers into the BFI South Bank on stage to talk to, hopefully, another generation who are coming up behind them, to kind of illuminate and inspire and to give a voice to working class talent.
It's interesting, isn't it, when we talk about diversity in filmmaking, that we often talk about race and gender and sexuality, and those are all good things, but we don't often talk about class, particularly in Britain.
Well, class is a really slippery term, so it's difficult in that sense. But yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not to take away for a second any of the huge strides that we've made in other areas of diversity. Those are all hugely, hugely important. But yeah, class, and I think beyond class, actually just economics are often unmentioned. And economics is a huge problem for people. I mean, one of the biggest barrier for people breaking into film, or indeed any area of the arts or any area of kind of creativity, is often money. There's always that idea, that fond idea, that now in the age of iPhones, everyone can just sit and kind of can make a movie on your phone. It's not quite that simple. I mean, the film industry is still expensive and complex to break into. I think there are also very, very deep-seated cultural problems that people face in terms of their confidence, in terms of the information that they need and that they need to have about how to actually go about getting into film, about access. All of these things are things which I think, if you come from a position of more social privilege, essentially, you take things for granted. You take it for granted that you can walk into a room and feel a sense of confidence and a sense of belonging. And so much of the film industry and kind of actually making films is about that. It's about having a certain sense of entitlement, a certain sense of confidence, a certain sense of being in the right place. Whereas I think for a lot of people, and I probably include myself in this, you go through a career, in film or in the arts, feeling like you're waiting for a hand on your shoulder to pull you back out of the room.
I was going to ask about that, actually. I mean, how would you describe your own class background, and how does that inform your career, do you think?
I mean, my class background is messy, I think, more than anything else. I mean, both my parents were pretty pure products of, it was the explosion of social mobility that really happened at the end of the 50s and 60s. My parents come from council houses. My dad got onto university and he sort of became socially mobile as a consequence. So my parents, went in different directions in that sense, kind of class-wise. I went to a comprehensive school, single-parent family, grew up with my mum who hadn't been to university. There wasn't a huge amount of money, certainly. I have felt throughout my entire life, as a journalist, and particularly as a film journalist, that I am in the wrong room a lot of the time. It's quite difficult sometimes to find someone with the same accent as you, and I think beyond that, that's something and nothing really, but it literally speaks to a bigger problem, which is a lack of shared experience. And I think a lot of the time, and journalism and film are parallel in this sense. You do feel that you're not always surrounded by people who share the same kind of cultural experience as you and the same outlook on the world, and people who understand your story as a result of it.
I get a sense from a lot of writing you've done about class and film recently that you feel like somehow the protest around working class talent moving up in the film industry has died down somewhat. Is that true? And who do you see as a kind of carrier of the torch, I guess?
Well, the timing of all this is deceptively wonderful, or wonderfully deceptive, because obviously at the moment you have three actors who are up for Oscars who come from working class backgrounds. In Britain, you've got Gary Oldman, you've got Daniel Kaluuya, and you've got Leslie Manville. So it feels like it's almost like, well, surely everything is fine. And Daniel, in particular, is obviously this incredible beacon. He's an actor who's broken through and who talks about himself explicitly as working class, and about the fact that he came from a working class background. That was the thing which tripped him up and which got in his way, and made life difficult. But I feel like Daniel's almost the exception that proves the rule. Actually, I mean, it's interesting. He has to go to America. We can, maybe later in the year, we can celebrate Daniel's career and what Daniel has achieved, but it's interesting, there's not a lot of British films that you could actually bring out and make part of that. He's had to go to the States. Some of that I think is to do with race, some of it is also to do with class, and I do think that and this isn't just something I'm making up off the top of my head. I mean, this is from this whole series of conversations that I've had with established working class actors and young working class actors trying to break through. I think you're seeing two things happening at the moment. You're seeing a dwindling of roles and a kind of diminishing of roles for established actors, where they're not getting starring roles so much because the kind of stories that are being told don't make room for them as much. And then I think beneath that, you're also seeing another generation coming through now, or not coming through, who are finding they can't even get to that stage because they can't even make those breakthroughs, because actually school isn't teaching drama. Drama schools are then prohibitively expensive. There's a whole load of very practical kind of structural financial problems in the way. It's very easy, I think, for those of us who are sort of working in the arts to think, well, actually all you need to do is inspire. You kindle a flame and someone sees this role model and they go off and have this wonderful career. It's really not that simple. It's really tough for people. If people don't have money in their pocket and they don't have the contacts and they don't know mechanically how to approach a world, it's very difficult for it to happen. And it's not happily ever after very often, unfortunately. So what we hope to do, I suppose, is twofold. It's to re-establish that connection of the role model, and it's also to give people a roadmap of how to actually go about fulfilling their own potential.
If people want to find out more about the season, where can they go?
So the season is going to be, the event itself in April is going to be, tickets will be on sale from the end of February at the BFI website. I would encourage people to come to the Future Film Festival, which is happening before that in the middle of February. We'll be talking a bit about the event at that. But yeah, basically watch this space. We're going to be contacting everyone that we can to spread the word. So anyone who's listening, who wants to spread the word, please help us do that. 14th of April is the day. Details and tickets will be available on the BFI website from the end of February, beginning of March.